after you go through it. So you're giving out a free loan. Banks don't give out free loans. They charge interest. They make money off of stuff like that. So anytime you do your taxes, you should be getting nothing back. You should be paying just exactly what you owe. So it should go hand in hand. You owe $100, well, don't give them $150, because then they can invest that $50, make some money, and then all I have to do is give you $50 back. So it's always making sure. Of course, I always loved getting my tax returns because I thought it was extra money. I was like, oh, I didn't think I was going to have this. Here's an extra $1,000 I didn't know I had. But then when they explained that at the seminar, obviously a lot of these topics I could spend a long time really diving into, but this is just a general overview. I mean, taxes are a very complex topic, which I will get into later as far as investing tips. But taxes are very complicated. And so I have example, if you look at my dad, he went to school and studied, what book was it you studied? The book of John? Yes. Okay, the book of John, the Bible is about 800,000 words, okay? And you have someone, example, my dad, who went to school to study one book, not the whole Bible, but just one book, and become really good at that one book. The tax code is almost about 7 million words. So you have one person that has spent most of their life studying one book, loving one book, obviously studying the whole Bible as a whole, but also really in-depth on one book, and it's probably constantly still teaching you new things. So tax code, 7 million words. Bible, 800,000. The tax code is something that has constant loopholes, and it's really complicated to the point where when they keep adding new legislations and new statements to it, there's always things that slip through the cracks. Obviously, over time, they patch them, but you can only patch so much. So loopholes are a thing that you should take advantage of. And I did write some examples down, but obviously each person's life is different. And so taking advantage of all the loopholes that you can, I highly recommend doing. I mean, you had Donald Trump pay very little in taxes. And that's because he took advantage of every loophole that applied to him. And I started doing the same loophole he did, because I didn't even realize you could, and that was he wrote everything off as a business expense. When you bought clothes, when you went to a restaurant, he brought up business in some way. And so one of the things I do is I'm a realtor. So anytime I have lunch with my friends or I'm doing anything, I say it's for real estate. And so if I have lunch, I'm like, oh, I bring up like, oh, you want to buy a house? As a joke, I'll say it one time, but I did talk about work. So that lunch is now written off as a business expense. So it's just finding all the loopholes that apply to you. I wanted to give you guys some examples. Okay, so one type of tax loophole that may apply to you, of course, there are a ton, and so you got to do a little bit of digging, and that's the hard work that takes place. So as before, when I said there's 4 ways to achieve wealth, one of them being hard work, this is that type of hard work that takes place, is just doing the research, taking the time to figure out what works for you, and having that mindset that you deserve it. So this is tiny. Let's see. The Savers tax credit. That's one loophole that you can take advantage of. A quick little description of it is working class Americans who manage to put together some savings can claim the Savers tax credit. So you can get tax credit for just claiming that you have a savings account. It's really that simple. There's little loopholes like that. Another one is the American Opportunity Tax Credit. Provides a tax credit for eligible students participating in higher education programs after high school. I'm looking at you guys because I know you just went through that, and taxes are coming up. It's called the American Opportunity Tax Credit. So essentially, if you decided to go to school after high school, you can get a tax credit. And obviously, they have their own limitations, and all these have their own. You have to qualify for some of them. Sometimes you don't meet the qualification, so you don't get that loophole. But knowing that you could have got that loophole, or knowing that you did the research and then you actually can use that loophole, will benefit you than if you never do the research. So there's that one. Child tax credit. This credit is designed to give an income boost to the parents or guardians of children and other dependents. So you get tax credit for having kids, essentially. So if you really dive in, there's so many different loopholes, and some of them the government puts in on purpose. Some of them are, like these ones are put in on purpose. They're meant for you to find. They're not going to be like, when you do your taxes, be like, oh, you missed this loophole right here, you should go do that. Well, no, if you're going to pay them that money, then they're going to be like, okay, we'll take it. But if you know the loophole and you put it to use, they're not going to, it's not illegal. Loopholes are a thing. They put their own loopholes in there, and some of them they accidentally put in. Because when they're constantly adding new things to the tax code, things slip through the cracks. And if you find a one that slipped through the cracks and you use it, no harm is going to come to you. You just be like, well, there's nothing on me not doing this, so I did it, and so I saved some money. They're like, okay, well, apparently 100,000 people found this little crack and made a ton of money, so we're just going to patch it. They patch it, and then you find another loophole. Mm-hmm. I can just repeat it. So the question was, is there a website you can go to find all the different loopholes? I'm repeating it for the camera, not because I know you guys can hear. In my experience, whenever I try to do any research on it, I find different sets of loopholes on different websites. So most websites never have the same loophole, and that just goes to show that there's a whole bunch of loopholes to find. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm supposed to get my financial advising license in 2 weeks. So my recommendation would just be to have a tax consultant or a CPA. If you have either one of those, you can ask them, and their job is to know the tax code. Obviously, they're not going to be able to know every single loophole, but they're definitely going to know more than most people. Because if they're trying to study a whole 7 million word tax code, and the language is pretty dense, it's not super easy to understand and read. So it takes a long time to fully understand the little sections. And so at one of the conferences, I met with a multi-millionaire. He was very, very well off, but he was a tax consultant. And he was the tax consultant from the beginning. It was just what he did with how he budgeted his money that led him to having so much money later on down the road. But he continued to do it because he, for whatever reason, really loved it. And he said that, I'm only an expert in one sliver of the tax code, just one sliver. And even then, every year, the laws are changing. Things are being added, things are being taken away. So each year, it's like I have to remaster that whole little sliver. So you find a CPA or a tax consultant that has mastered the sliver of whatever fits your lifestyle. So if like you're a pastor, there's probably tax consultants that are specialized in that specific area. And so they study it constantly and they constantly learn it, and so they can better help you fully understand it. So I wouldn't say there's a single website out there that has all the loopholes. Obviously, if anyone wants to start a business, that would be a good one to start. Creating a website that just has every single loophole that you can apply for. But one of the biggest things that they always talk about is not to use TurboTax. So at least when I was at one conference, and the conference, they had a requirement. Obviously, I did not meet this requirement, but I knew someone that did, and so they brought me along with them. The requirement was that you had to have at least $2 million in the bank account to even attend. And so obviously the seminar, it didn't cost $2 million to go, but you just had to have that kind of money. It was just information for people that had that kind of money and had to keep going. And so they were talking about never using TurboTax. And what some of them do though is they use TurboTax just to plan their taxes throughout the year, but they don't submit anything through TurboTax. They do all the taxes themselves, or they have a CPA or tax consultant that does it for them, because each person is different. And so if you have one person working on just you, well, they're going to help find every single loophole possible. But they never use TurboTax, because TurboTax is going to be very simple. You're going to have to know all the loopholes yourself. You're going to have to go through that path. So if you either do it yourself and you know all the loopholes, then do that. That way you're not even paying TurboTax to do it. If you have a CPA, then say, hey, can we sit down for 3 hours and you go over every loophole that may help me? And they just let them do their job, because that is their job, is to study the tax code and be able to fully understand it and help you get the most out of your tax dollars. So it's mindset number 4 is the tax code. This one kind of leads into, getting short on time. Okay, so this one kind of leads into the next half, which is the financial tips, but it's essentially never put off investing. So I hear the same excuses for not investing all the time, and it's always the same 2 excuses. Let's see. Actually, I think I have a slide of it. So the same 2 excuses are, I've had bad experiences in the past. I've invested and I lost all my money. So that's one excuse why they don't invest anymore. I bought a bunch of stocks went downhill, now I have no money, I'm never going in the stock market again. The second one is, I haven't saved enough money to invest yet. I have some savings, but it's not enough to invest. And that's why it's the power of the penny. You don't need a whole lot of money to invest. You can start very small and slowly work your way up. So in my personal opinion, you should be investing right away. So when you pay yourself, that money that you have paid yourself with now goes towards your investments. And so in the next half, I'll be talking about, I only put up 3 different kinds of strategies for investing, and they're probably ones that you could think of off the top of your head right now, but it's just going more in depth on why I'd recommend going these 3 options. And I can briefly tell you which ones they are. It's stocks, real estate, and a Roth IRA. So I'll go into all those in a little bit, but as far as, let me see. So yeah, does anyone have any questions about this first half of just the mindset?
Could you share maybe like some personal, I think like one thing that's really inspiring about you is that you're young and it's not like we're listening to somebody that's a multimillionaire yet. So you're actually applying these disciplines right now to your life and you're building wealth. So could you share like maybe some personal things about like situations where you actually have had to apply that discipline, like to say no to something, or
Yeah. One thing that every year, me and my friends like to go on a trip. Whether it's like to take one fun experience, they save up throughout the year and then take one big trip. So we've been to Japan, Turkey. Well, I've been to Turkey. Um, they this year decided, or last summer, they decided to do Vietnam. That was the trip they wanted to take. And so the excuse I made was I'm too busy with work. That's what I said. It was more of it did not fit my budget at the time. So I had a budget for it, and I was like, you know what? I'd much rather put this budget into my savings and invest it than go to the trip on Vietnam. So they went, and they probably have a ton of fun memories and experiences from it. But like I said, I chose that. My specific choice goes back to I'm chasing a lifestyle, essentially. I want to be able to do that at any point in life. I don't want to have to be like, okay, I need to save for 2 years and then take this trip. I want to be like, oh, I worked really hard. I'm going to go on a trip.
What are some small decisions? Because I know that your lifestyle, like you make some very small lifestyle choices that keep your spending down, but you still enjoy life.
So, yeah, it's
Small budget choices you make.
for me, like I said, you need to look at your life and apply it to what works best for you. So, like for my specific life, I have 4 different streams of income. And so I have one of those streams of income that pays for my bills and my living. So that keeps me very strict to what I spend. So the other 3 is that's what I pay myself with. So whenever I get any money from those other 3, it goes directly it gets split up into different types of investing accounts, but that's essentially what I'm paying myself with. So for that one stream, it pays my car, pays any type of groceries or things like that. So if at some point I get to a month or towards the end of the month and I've spent all my grocery money, I did my car bill, I paid all my bills, did all my groceries, and I have $20, I'm not gonna spend any more than that. That's essentially what I have. So I won't go or I won't go out to lunch, or I won't go out and get dinner. I won't go past that. So that's just, I don't know if that really answers your question. It's more of just,
Like I know some things, like the way you buy clothes.
okay, yeah, that's a good example.
Spend money like on drinks or not, like that was a life change I watched you make on purchasing coffee, on I think you don't engage in fast fashion. You purchase
I should have, I wasn't thinking that route, but essentially all my clothes can fit in one box. If I had to pack up and move, I have enough clothes to fit in one box and that's it. I don't need more shirts. I don't need more pants. I only buy pants if they rip. Then I'm like, okay, I need to get another pair of pants. So I have 2 pairs of pants that I switch back and forth for and 1 nice suit. This is part of that nice suit. So technically 3 pairs of pants.
But you also don't like you make these decisions. Like for example, the air fryer you bought. It was an economical decision because you said it's a slow cooker, it's an air fryer.
Oh,
You
yeah.
did like 4 or 5 things. Now you spent over $100 on that, but you got the return on that is that you are getting to cook like 3 different ways, and you're not buying pots and pans now or whatever. Or even your car, like there's ways you go about you sacrifice in one spot and then in other spots you make decisions that even though they might be I think the mindset that happens with people is we think that we have to live poor in order to save. And we don't always think about you can actually make a purchase decision that's more expensive and a higher quality that lasts much longer so that you can save. And I see you do that a lot.
So I guess,
You want to repeat it for the folks on the people on.
Thank you, Sean.
so
They
the question is, that was a long spiel. Can you sum it into one question so that I can repeat it? Essentially, how do I implement this mindset into my lifestyle, and how do I create a good budget?
small decisions.
Yeah, and small decisions. So when I was creating my budget, I realized that a lot of my spending was going out to eat. I didn't go grocery shopping. My food budget was going out to eat. And I realized that there are so many better options as far as saving money goes than going out to eat every night. If I was working late, I would drive, and then whatever fast food place was open that night, I'd stop by and get food. I was like, oh, that's the cheapest option right now. Well, it's not the cheapest if you plan ahead, if you have the right mindset. But at that current moment, I had no food at home, so it was just, I'm going to stop by, get whatever I can here. So when I was creating my budget, my thought process was, well, if I get air fryer, I can make a lot of food at home, and I can just go grocery shopping and whatnot. So when I went to the store, I had a very simple budget for it. Oh, that's smart. I had a very simple budget for it, but then I realized that, if I spend a little bit more money, obviously I compared what I was spending to what I'd be saving if I switched over to going grocery shopping. So I was like, okay, now that I know this is how much I'll be saving, for one more month, I will spend the same amount that I was originally spending on fast food or going out to eat. And so I had a whole budget laid out of what I could spend on appliances and things like that for cooking or anything kitchen related. And then I had one for how much I had for food. So for 1 month, I essentially had this whole budget, and I was like, okay, well, I'll get an air fryer. Air fryers are probably around $100. And so I was like, okay, that's great. It's a little bit under than what I planned for, under my budget. And then I saw that there were devices now that are slow cookers, pressure cookers, air fryers, that have like 10 things in one. And I was like, well, this kind of opens up how much of all the different kinds of food I can buy as far as cooking food. So now I only use that air fryer, and I just cook whatever I buy that month. And then I have, obviously, in my budget, a small amount for going out. So, but essentially, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other. I think it just comes down to little decisions. I needed a car for work, and so just the small little changes. Obviously, a car purchase is a big purchase, but there's little decisions you can make. So obviously, my dream car has always been a Tesla, but I was not planning on getting one. My plan was to run a whole budget on what car would get me from point A to point B the cheapest. So obviously in my head I was like, well, it's probably going to be a Prius. It's probably going to be a Honda Civic. It's probably going to be one of those options. So I ran all the numbers on how much it would cost. I wanted to get a used one. I thought if I got used, it would be cheaper. So I was like, okay, if I got a used one, I want less than 20,000 miles. So I do a lot of driving. So I want it to be less than 20,000 miles. And I did it for, I think it was, the math I did was 3 to 5 years. So the cost of the car for 3 to 5 years. So I added in maintenance, I added in gas. This was right before the gas prices went through the roof when I made all these numbers. And so the one that was first, the cheapest, was Honda Civic. I think in total at the 5-year mark, I would spend a total of, I think it was $50,000. So I was like, okay, at the 3-year mark, that includes maintenance, that includes the car, that includes gas for all 5 years. If I drive just the amount of miles that I plan to drive, spend that much on gas, it's about $50,000. And I was like, okay, I'm good with that. And then I was like, you know what, for the fun of it, I already have all the math figured out. Might as well just add in my dream car to see what it would look. So then I put the Tesla in there just for fun. And the numbers I found were that in 3 years' time, I break even. So in 3 years from getting a Tesla, I break even with any other purchase any other car I would have gotten. And then after that, I start saving money. It didn't make much sense to me, but as I did research on the car, it doesn't depreciate as fast as other cars. So I can trade it in and get like 3 times the money back from if I had just gotten a Honda Civic. Gas is way cheaper, and if I had gotten a gas car, I would have been spending a lot more than what I had budgeted for because gas prices went through the roof. Maintenance, there's like zero maintenance. In the past 3 years, I've spent $50 on maintenance, and that was because I got a nail in the tire. With typical cars, I think if I'm remembering right, it starts off cheaper, and then it gets really expensive, and then it levels out. So it's like, I think the first year, you're probably going to spend about $500 on maintenance. The second year, I think, is $1,000. And the third year, I think, is $1,500 on maintenance. And then it stops at around $1,500 and just levels out there. Just averaging on what you spend on maintenance. For my car, I have no oil changes, no nothing. So that was a huge plus for me. I think what really set it aside was just the fact that no one keeps a car forever. It's a depreciating asset. So over time, you're going to put all this money that you have saved, invested, whatever, and put it into a car that in 5 years' time is not going to be worth anything near what you bought it for. You're going to sell it trying to get some money back to put down as a down payment for your next car. And I was like, well, that's just no fun, but I do need to get to point A to point B. And when I was like, oh, well, if Teslas are doing this with a brand new one, I'll just get a used one. The used ones are more expensive than the new ones, which it didn't make any sense to me when I was looking at used ones, because I was like, oh, I'll save even more money. But then they were like $55,000. I was like, well, that's not, I'm trying to save money here. And it didn't make much sense, but it's just the tech inside, the way they explain it is the tech inside is, it doesn't depreciate. The only thing that depreciates is the exterior and like the chairs and things like that. So that's why I ended up making that, I guess it was a small decision of just budgeting it all out and really planning each little step through, because cars do depreciate, and every little thing you do, it just, if you plan it out, you can realize that there are better options. So as far as like food, I'm saving a lot more money now going with that route. The number one thing I drink the most, and I drink a lot of it, is coffee. So I have probably like, I've gotten it down, but before it was like 6 cups a day. So it's not that much anymore. But essentially I realized that most of my grocery money was going towards stopping at any type of coffee place on the way to work, buying a coffee or buying Red Bulls or anything that had caffeine in it. I just drank it. And I had a lot of it. And so I ended up getting a Keurig and have the little pods. And so I only have like 2 cups a day now. But it still doesn't sound good, just 2 cups. But so that costs a lot, because I can get a box of, I think it's like 40 little pods for $20. And I get 4 cups of coffee and it's like $20. So it started saving me a lot of money there. So I guess it's just little things. It's looking at the things that you enjoy, all the things, simple pleasures. Like for me, it's coffee or going on drives or things like that. And looking how you can budget it to where you still get to enjoy it, but you have a better spending of it.
Yeah, I have a question. I think it's related. I know kind of the backstory here, and then I'm looking at the context of the people that are here as well. And I think a lot of them would benefit just from you maybe speaking to what motivated you to like look towards making part of your mission in life, wealth and wealth management. I noticed that you didn't talk about on any of these slides an agenda in your personal life of giving. You're a significant and a very generous giver, and that's what motivates you to get wealth, is your whole passion for giving and being generous. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit?
On like how to budget giving into your,
just as like if a person is just trying to get wealth for the sake of getting wealth, it can be a very empty thing in the end, because you can't take it with you. You know, you only have it here with you in this life. So you almost need, and I know this because I know you, but your passion is anti-human trafficking and giving to causes. And so the whole reason why you're all about making money, underneath all of that, is not because you just want to make money. It's because you have a passion for anti-human trafficking and doing good in this world. So I think maybe like that's what motivates you to make these sacrifices and make these cuts, because you're always generously helping other people out.
I think for me, it's just, you only need so much. At some point, I think a lot of the millionaires at these conferences said at a certain point, there's nothing left to buy. Like it just gets, like you said, it gets empty. They run out of things to buy. They run out of things to do. There's no purpose. Because, I mean, unless you want like $100 million yacht, you don't really need one. Like you can just, if you have that kind of money, then you can just get a simple regular yacht, and I think you'd be happy with just that. But I think for me, it's just, you only need so much. And personally, I just want to have a life that I have exactly what I need and not have to worry about anything else. So anytime something I need comes up, I don't have to worry if I have enough for it. And then everything outside of that is, well, there are a lot of people out there that have way less need or have needs that should just be given to them, and they shouldn't have. They should be born with it. They should be born with certain things. They shouldn't have to worry or have certain stresses in life. Like I have a gift of being born here, and there's a lot of things, a lot of privileges I get that I don't understand or I don't realize I get. And I think at a certain point, everyone has privileges, and some people have way less than others. And there's some people that basic privileges should be just given when you're born, and they're just not given it. So like some people are just born into trafficking. For me personally, that's not right. That doesn't make, I mean, I don't think anyone here would agree that's right, but for me, it's not fair. I didn't have a choice of being born here and not being put in that situation. But I did get privileges, and I do have the opportunity to help them get those privileges back. Things that they should already deserve, or things that they should have. They shouldn't have to pray for or ask for. They should naturally just have it. But they're born into a situation that they didn't ask to be born into, and they're living a lifestyle that they didn't ask for. So with the privileges that I have, I want to take advantage, because I know if our situations were switched, if I was being trafficked and they were here, and they had the same memory of like they were being trafficked, they would take advantage of every single opportunity given to them, because they realized they never had it before. So just because you're born with these privileges or born in a place where you have all this potential doesn't mean that you should just waste it and not take advantage of it. So personally, I like to take advantage of it so that I can help those that don't get it. So that's just my motivation behind it. Just because essentially I just know that if they were in my shoes, they'd be taking advantage of every single thing that was given to them. So it's not really fair for me not to do the same to help them get their privileges. I don't know if that answered your question.
Pastor, you have a gift for picking up on what vibe of people in the room are having, because I think I started writing down some things that you were saying, Jeb, and I'm going to get like kind of personal, so I don't know if it applies to everyone in the room, but it really brilliantly segues with what the pastor is talking about, I think. So what I wrote down is really thinking about your first tenet, right? Where you're saying have a mindset that you want to achieve at in the future, whenever it comes, right? But it's a mindset, it's a feeling, right? That's what you deserve.
Yeah.
All right. So on that line of thinking, the first thing I wrote down is, I don't have the desire to be a billionaire. Maybe other people are. I said, I think about it and I say that would be nice. But then again, I have always thought like more money, more problems. And it would be nice, but I don't have the desire to go out and become a billionaire. I have a desire, what I wrote next was, I have a desire to do good. Right? That's what my mindset would be about, is doing good in this world. When having money will let me do good, that isn't the motivating factor for me deeply in my soul. It's like that's why I feel like I'm here, where God has placed me, right? And take care of my mom, personally, right? That's something else that I look forward to that I think about a lot, because she has Parkinson's disease and a lot of other things, and I'm very far away from where she lives. So I think about putting myself in a situation where I can be financially secure so I can take care of her, do good to, widespread things, right? Similar to what you're talking about in terms of trafficking and so on.
Yeah, I think you would just change. I say millionaires and billionaires, but I think essentially it's just financial freedom. It's being able to have enough to where you can take care of your loved ones, and then and do what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about helping people, you don't have to worry about like, you can volunteer time. Like that is one option. But sometimes I can't always go to Nepal and volunteer every single day and be there. But if I have, it's sad to say that, our world speaks one language. The universal language is money. So sadly, that's the truth. And when I started my nonprofit, I just came to that realization that, I could do more good if I had more money. At least that's what my thought process was at the time. Obviously, there's probably a better way to phrase that. But in my head, it was, if I had more money, I could do more good. I could open up more anti-human trafficking facilities, and find ways to to bring in, to help save more lives, bring more people in, teach them traits that they can make money through.
Right.
So like Karuna Care does, they teach the women how to sew clothes or make food, and then they help them start their own business. Right. So a lot of them go back into trafficking because they don't know what to do. They've been in it their whole life, that's all they know. And so they just go back into that cycle. So for me, it's language is or money is the universal language of the world. And so being able to understand it and teach it and make it to a point where you are financially free and you don't have to worry about it for yourself, that gives you the opportunity and the chance to focus on others.
And I agree with that. And I think that's where I've kind of landed, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to go through this process. I don't think I've ever articulated this, right? Mm-hmm. So I believe that financial wealth is your portion that God is, that wants you to be a good steward of, right? And where I struggle, I think, is since we are here in church, right? Mm-hmm. Is things like, it's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter heaven. And, I know that my rewards are in heaven. And we are asked not to be of this world, right? To be in this world, but not of this world. And so it's a balance, and it's kind of struggle because you talk about people who are empty, right? They bought things. And I'm very sort of concerned about my own, way of moving through the world and what generating wealth, even to do good, right? Like, it just is more of the things you have to do in order to attain wealth is part of being in the system, like you just said. Like, money is the universal language, right? So the actions you take are going to be grounded in your heart and mind may be on the kingdom, but you have to focus and work hard if you're not going to win the lottery, and you're not going to, you're going to have to focus and work hard, and you're going to be in a system that is earthly. So that's where I struggle, because is this much too much in the world? And, because, so that, it's on my heart.
Yeah, I think just for me, it's having the financial freedom gives me more time to work on God's kingdom and not necessarily Earth's kingdom, if you want to phrase it like that. So if I'm constantly stressing about finances, then I'm so caught up in this world and I'm not able to help others. I'm more focused on my problems than other people's problems. So being able to do simple things like take out an hour of your day just to budget is a simple way to where you don't have to focus on your budget again, because you have that budget now. You just have to stick to it. It's the only thing you have to do. And then once you start creating that little bit of wealth, it gives you more time to focus on what you are passionate about. Like for me, it's anti-human trafficking, or it's just focusing on God's kingdom, not this specific Earth's kingdom, but God's. And I found that if I was constantly stressing about finances, I wasn't much good to anybody. I was constantly stressed. I was constantly focusing on myself. I wasn't good. I wasn't able to do my best work in helping others. So having that little bit of financial freedom when I had people reach out to me and be like, hey, I'm struggling this month. I need your help. I'd be like, I'm set this month. I have the finances to help. Plus, it's just, now that's the direction I'm going, is I want to help. And I have that time to do so. And I don't have to worry about mine. I don't have to be like, let me check my finances, make sure I can help. It was simply, I was like, yeah, I got you. And then I can help. So it was giving me the time that I personally prefer on God's kingdom than Earth's kingdom. I just had to take some time, set aside to budget, create a plan, and then I was able to spend the rest of the time focusing on God's kingdom. At least that's how I do it. But essentially, yeah. Any other questions before we take a break?
I don't have a question, but I have some input and awareness that I'd like to share. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you, Jed. You know, I've been praying for you all week about how to deliver this message to us because part of my background is that for over 27 years, I was in finance. So I was and am very aware of the world of money. And for those 27 plus years, it was Vivian in the kingdom of money and earth. And so that money was misspent. Okay? Fast forward, and now my world is about God. So my prayer for you was, thank you, God, for blessing Jed with godly financial wisdom. Right? Godly financial wisdom. And hearing you speak those words today is priceless for me. Because today, Vivian's kingdom is godly financial wisdom. Make way, way less money. However, am able to give.
Yeah.
Right? To give because it's godly financial wisdom. So thank you. And I love, because my brain was going to what Pastor Jeff G just asked was, well, share about your motivation. Because that was going to be my question for you. Well, what was your motivation?
Yeah.
Why follow this path? So thank you for sharing that, my love. And boy, I'm going to keep praying for you.
So yeah, just take a 15-minute break unless there's more questions.
Any more questions? All right, 15-minute break. Donuts galore. Coffee, as much as you want.
Yeah.
Have to be on the 2 cup limit.